Assalamu alaikum, everybody, marhaban, and thank you so much for joining. Welcome to this lesson, Arabic Roots Beyond Kataba. I wanted to start off by introducing myself a little bit. My name's Habib. I'm a co-founder of Ihsan Arabic along with my wife, Ella, and we started Ihsan Arabic 5 years ago to share our passion, the Arabic language, and to facilitate Arabic as a hobby for people around the world. So Arabic's my job, teaching Arabic. I do that full time, but Arabic's also my hobby. And I have lots of hobbies, actually, to be honest. I like to draw, I like to write, and I like to sing, believe it or not, when no one's listening. When no one's listening, you might find me singing a song. Sometimes I make a song up on the spot. And sometimes I sing a song by a singer that I've heard before on the radio or something like that. Other times I like to sing a song by an unsung artist, someone who I don't think sees the light of day too much. And so, I'm not a singer, but I really like singing. And you're probably thinking by now, how come Habib's gone off on one talking about singing? I thought this was supposed to be about Arabic roots. And there's a connection here. I just wanted to, talk about this idea of an English root, perhaps, before we talk about Arabic roots. And so right now, we have the English root SNG. And SNG has the potential to create so many words in the English language. For instance, we can create the word sing by putting an I. We add that little bit to the root. We could create the word song, sung, sang. It's quite a few combinations already. But when we start to get what language students call suffixes and prefixes involved, we have so many more potentials. And I think I used all of these, singing, unsung, singer. So language is a little bit like a toolbox. And perhaps we could see SNG as being, your really important tools that you use to create this idea of vocal music. But then we have an inventory of other terms, I, O, usually vowels as opposed to consonants, which we add into the root to create nuances in meaning and grow different words. Now, today's lesson is going to be introducing what the Arabic root system is. Now, you may have heard something about the Arabic root system. You may have an idea what that is. It may be new to you. And if you have heard about what the Arabic root system is, perhaps you're not sure yet how we can practically use it. And that's what the second half of this session is going to be about. How can we practically use that root system to make our lives easier as Arabic students? What can we do with that? And if you have any questions throughout this session, just write them down. And at the end, we'll have a little Q&A. And I would love to answer anything that you're thinking about throughout this session. So as I said, Arabic is a language which makes a huge use of a root system. English, perhaps you could argue that it's not really. There's some examples like the SNG root, which becomes sing, song, sung. But lots of other words you could say, oh, that doesn't really fit into this idea of roots. But many words, in fact, a huge amount of words in the Arabic language grow out of this system of roots. Now, this is the same for many Semitic languages. And, for instance, Hebrew, Akkadian, and Aramaic. And this picture here, this beautiful carving here was of Aramaic. All of these languages, some of them have died, unfortunately, and others like Arabic are still going. All of them create meaning with this system of 3-letter roots. And now, here's the Arabic alphabet. And many people, when they start to learn Arabic, sometimes it's as a young child, they're sitting in the mosque and this is the first thing they're exposed to, these beautiful letters. And you might be thinking, hang on a second, something's missing here. And yes, the alif is not featured in this list. And because the alif never actually features as an Arabic root, which is interesting. So it is a letter, it is the first letter of the Arabic alphabet, but you never find an alif used as a root letter. And that is something that we can perhaps go into a little bit more as the session progresses. But what happens really is any three of these letters in a particular order will start to evoke a general sense of meaning. And so I've collected a range of roots right here. And as you can see, we have, for instance, this one here. Now, if you are just getting to grips with the Arabic letters, this one is kaf ta ba. And the title of this lesson was Arabic Roots Beyond Kaf ta ba, which is a little bit of a pun on the fact that when you're getting, when someone's explaining to you what an Arabic root is, they will always mention kaf ta ba, because it's such a perfect example to encapsulate the Arabic root system. Thank you. I got a comment there which translates this as the idea of writing. Yes, brilliant. So kaf ta ba encapsulates the idea of writing. And it's an idea, it's a general sense. Sin lam mim, for instance, captures the idea of being safe. Jim lam sin, for instance, captures the idea of sitting. And all of these roots will capture their own general idea within the Arabic language. And, you know, as we go forward, we can relate that first example I gave with the SNG, that captured the idea of vocal music, of singing. Jim mim ayn in Arabic is a root that captures the idea of gathering together. Now, I've read that someone has estimated that in the Arabic language, there are between 5,000 and 6,500 Arabic roots in existence. And when I heard that, a number to start with, I was a little surprised because I thought, well, I've always heard Arabic has such a rich vocabulary. And I was like, okay, 5,000, 6,000, that's a lot, but I was kind of thinking it would be a little bit more. And then I sat down and thought about it, and I was like, well, actually, when you think about how many words can stem from a single root, then it makes sense. Because you don't need a lot to create a huge amount of words. So jim mim ayn is that root which I just previously mentioned, which means gathering, coming together. And this beautiful diagram has split all of the words coming from this root into verbs, nouns, and adjectives. So if we have a look at the verbs to begin with, we will see jim mim ayn, jama'a. I'll just circle that so you can see it, just here. Jama'a means together, okay? So, or he gathered. It's the kind of the root sense, very, very basic verbal meaning. But then with little add-ons, you can start to go further. Istajma'a here, to summarize. So to gather information together. Ajma'a, to agree. So to gather your opinions. And if we go across here to the nouns here, we'll find words which you may have heard already. For instance, the word jamia right here, which translates as mosque, or jamia for university. And so from one root, as you can see, we can get just so much meaning. So much meaning can stem from this one root. Now, one of my favorite possessions is this beat up old Arabic to English dictionary. the Hansver dictionary, and it's been with me all throughout my travels. I studied Arabic in Palestine. I studied Arabic in London. I visited Jordan. I took this dictionary everywhere I went, and it slowly got more and more abused. But this dictionary is very significant to what we're talking about right now, because it is organized by root. So if I wanted to look up the word Jumu'ah, for example, I'm thinking about the Friday prayer, and I'm thinking, what does Jumu'ah mean? Then I think about the root of that word first. I think Jim, Mim, Ain. Okay, that is something to do with this root. What root is that? I look that up in the dictionary, and I find that Jim, Mim, Ain means gathering, collecting, congregation. And all of the words from that root will be listed in the dictionary. This is just a little section of the entry for another root called jalasa, meaning sitting. And so you can see you get words, for instance, like a jalsa, which could mean a session of parliament. You could have a jalis, meaning a participant in a social gathering, a table companion, a jalisa, a lady companion. So these coming, all different little bits getting added onto the word, but always remaining is the jim, lam, sin in that particular order. Julus, you may have heard that word to refer to the position in the prayer where we're sitting down. And majlis, a conference room, a gathering, a meeting. So some people have actually said that the Arabic dictionary also behaves like a thesaurus. Yeah, it also behaves in that way of gathering the synonyms, words with similar meaning, because generally words which come from one root will share similar meaning because they all come down to the same general idea. For instance, we could look at words coming from kaf ta ba, which evokes the general idea of writing. And as you can see here, that katibun means a writer. And you can recognize, I see, yeah, it's got those three letters in again, kaf, ta, and ba. The word for book in Arabic, kitabun, has those in a slightly different form there. Maktub, letter, maktab, desk. So all of these, in some way or another, relate to writing. Okay, so that's pretty cool. We can get all of these similar meanings that come from the same root. But sometimes this topic is a little bit more mysterious and illuminating than just everything relating back to one single idea. Like, for instance, this beautiful root, rahama. It has the idea of being merciful at its core. And yet, the words that come from it are not just all in a straightforward way to do with mercy, or are they? That's the thing here. Because rahma means mercy, right? A general idea, an abstract noun. But also we get the word rahim, which means womb. And so what's beautiful about this root system is it solidifies, it bakes these beautiful connection into the very language. So people who are learning Arabic are also learning about perhaps the idea that mercy and the mother are kind of always connected. And so there's these amazing teachings, I suppose, within the Arabic language and within the root system. Another root, which is quite fascinating, is that of jim, noon, noon. And yes, you can have two of the same letters in a single root. Jim, noon, noon means being covered or hidden. That's the general idea behind this root. And it might not be so surprising then that the word jinn, referring to the beings which are hidden from our eyes, comes from this root. But what might be a little bit puzzling is why the word Jannah, referring to paradise or the garden, comes from this same root. And I've heard that the connection between these actually comes from the fact that Jannah refers to a garden whose greenery is so luscious, so beautiful, that it covers the soil underneath. And so when you look down, you can't see any soil, you can just see beautiful greenery. And that, therefore, the soil is hidden or covered from our eyes, just like the jinn is covered from our eyes. And there's many other beautiful words that come from this root. Another root, which we've probably used ourselves many times, is that of sin, lam, mim, which gives the idea of being safe and sound. And this root gives us the meaning of salam, meaning peace, the meaning of Islam, submission, and also the meaning of salim, safe. Okay, so being peaceful, safe, submitting, going with the flow, all of these are kind of make sense. And then we get sulam, a ladder. I might use a ladder to climb up a wall if I'm painting or something. And something tells me that a ladder isn't the safest of things in the world. And so when I read that in the dictionary and I read that sulam comes from that root, I was a little bit, I chuckled to myself. I was like, that's not very safe. And as for the connection, Allahu A'lam, I haven't learned it yet. But the connection between a ladder and this idea of being safe, but I'm always on the lookout for a good explanation. And this is the kind of one of the beautiful mysteries of studying Arabic. You get these gems along the way, and someone will say, oh no, it relates. And it's kind of like a mind explosion, just like it was when I heard the reason for Jannah and Jinn sharing the same root. Now, as we looked at before, and as I mentioned at the beginning of this class, I want to go a step further. So hopefully now we have an idea for what a root is, but I also want to go and have a look at how we can practically use the root system to help us studying Arabic in a sense. And I just got a beautiful comment there from Aisha saying that a ladder offers stability and keeps you safe from falling, which is a beautiful explanation for the link between the idea of sin lam mim, meaning peace and safety, as well as being used for a ladder. So there's always something there. Otherwise, it wouldn't have grown out of that root. So thank you very much for that. So as I was saying, I want to talk about how we can practically use the root system to help us as Arabic students. Now, let's go back to that English example that I provided at the beginning. I was going to say seen there, but SNG, root. That's the root for singing. And all of these extra bits that are put here in purple are patterns. So these are parts we would add to the root to give it more of a specific meaning. Now, let's have a look, for instance, at that one we just saw earlier, sin lam mim, the idea of all of these different ideas. And so sin lam mim has this idea of being safe, safety, and we get all these words coming from that root. Now, I didn't have time to make all the extra bits purple, but as you can see, this alif here, that's extra. And this this hamza, kasra at the beginning, that's extra. It's not part of the root. Okay. The ya here, again, not part of the root. Even the shadda on the word ladder, the shadda being that little W that provides emphasis on the lam, sulam, like that. That is not part of the root. And so what we can do is we can separate the two, and we can see that sin, lam, mim, these are, are core radicals, if you like. And then the purple letters here are all to do with the pattern. And these are, it's a kind of like all of these extra bits that we add on to create words. Now, traditionally, Arabic grammarians have arranged all of the extra bits that you could possibly use with words in Arabic to create this word. It's kind of like a mnemonic, sa'altumuniha, which is kind of the whole phonetic inventory for add-on bits that you can put in addition to the roots to make a separate a specific word. Now, I've heard many ways and many metaphors used to explain this whole idea of roots and patterns. And one of the best metaphors I've ever heard is the idea of molds. Molds. So what you generally do when you're molding something is you pour in the substance and it falls into this mold. As you can see, there's three different molds here in this picture. There's one here, there's one here, and one here. It falls into this mold and it then solidifies as a product. Now, think of the liquid you're pouring in as the root, and think of each of the molds as a different pattern that we can pour in the root, and then it will solidify into a specific word which you can use when you're speaking or writing, and you can understand when you're reading or listening. And so once we've done that, we get all of these words, vocabulary, things that Arabic students have a great time learning with their vocab cards or, copying them down. And it's a big challenge when you're studying Arabic, is learning the vocabulary. But all of the words that you learn as an Arabic student will in some way or another relate back to this root system. And so if I wanted to explain to you, for instance, the pattern that the word salim for safe follows, then I could do it the long way. And if I did it the long way, I would say, well, okay, so first you take the first root letter, the sin, and you put a fatha on top, an A sound, so sa. And then you put the second root letter, and after that you put a ya, and then you put your third root letter, mim, and then you put dammatain on, okay? That would be one way to explain to someone else the actual pattern being used for salim. But it's not very economical. It takes me a long time to do that. And to be honest, it's not even very clear. So here's another way. We have a model in Arabic. By a model, I mean this is used to exemplify. We try on roots onto these letters. Think about a mannequin in a shop window. What do we use that for? We put clothes on the mannequin, on the model, so we can see what the clothes would look like if we were wearing them. And this model has been chosen perhaps arbitrarily. There's no reason why we chose fa ayn lam as a model. Fa ayn lam in Arabic, it does have a meaning. It evokes the idea of doing things. So it's kind of a very general meaning, but these letters are no longer there to show meaning as such, but they're there being used as variables. Variables, a little bit like in algebra, where you have X, Y, and Z. They're just there to demonstrate patterns. And this will all make a lot more sense slightly later on. So fa ayn lam is the model, and I'll come back to this just in a minute. But before we do this, we need to think about the difference in meanings between roots and patterns. So roots refer to lexical meaning, like, the idea of being merciful, sitting, being safe and sound, writing. You could say anything there, crying, laughing, studying. Patterns, on the other hand, patterns refer to grammatical meaning. The idea of what role is the word playing in the sentence? Is that a word for tools? Is that the doer of an action? Is it a diminutive? Is it referring to little things? Is it a word for a place? Okay, so there's that distinction between the two. And what happens is we take the model and we have a look at a word, like for instance, kitabun, and we map the pattern, the extra bits, onto the model here. This is the model. And so when we map fa'il lam, we from kitab, we get fi'al. Notice, just like this, we had a kasra at the beginning. And just like after the ta, the second root letter, we had an alif. And so we can map it on. So we have rahim, for instance, the word for womb is on the pattern, and that's a little bit of a typo there, actually. It's not on the pattern fi'al, it's on the pattern, and you can see this perhaps would be useful for you to look at. This is on the pattern fa'il. So fa'il, rahim is on the pattern fa'il, and mat'am, the word for restaurant in Arabic, is on the pattern maf'al. So, okay, we have, on this column are actual words, and in this column are just models. These not necessarily, they don't necessarily have any meaning, these words. They're just there to demonstrate the pattern that kitab is on. Okay, so we can do it the other way. We can use the model as a recipe to make a word. So perhaps you can answer in the comments as a transliteration, or even you could type in Arabic. But we have the root here, sin, lam, mim. And if I was to put it into the model fa'il, what word would I get? Could anyone perhaps comment that? I'll just give you a moment. And you can absolutely write it in English, if that's clear. Absolutely, Salim. Well done. We got a great, I'll just make my pen a little bit thicker. Salim, yeah, so it's so easy. We can see that we have this model, which we use as a recipe. Once we have the root, we just plug it in. And the next one here, kaf ta ba on the pattern fa'il. Can anyone comment that, please? Katib, brilliant, yeah. Katib, so we get the word for a writer. Katibun. So, this is like a technology within the language that helps us to navigate the system of patterns. Thanks everyone for your comments. And so here we have a nice little Venn diagram that explains it. So as you can see, the root is sin lam mim. The pattern is if'al. And when we put two together, we get the word Islam, Islamun. So we've kind of got all the necessary information and we land on that word. All right, so now we know how to navigate the root system. We know how to use the model to extract a pattern. So we can talk about the if'al pattern, or we can talk about, for instance, going back to this one, the fa'il pattern, or the fa'il pattern. But I said earlier that these patterns actually have grammatical meaning in themselves. So the very pattern of one of the words evokes the idea of a doer of an action. Now you might be able to see where this is going, but here is exactly where it's going, because each pattern, as I said, has this idea of a specific meaning. And when we combine that with the general meaning of the root, we get a particular word. So for instance, let's say I take the root ta lam ba. Ta lam ba has this idea of requesting things. And so if I plug that into the fa'il pattern, I get the idea for a requester or an asker, which then becomes the meaning that in Arabic is used for a student, a talib. Okay. And, you can do the same thing with so many words. So trader, tajir. Again, it's a bit like in English where we put the doer, the on the end of things. Okay, katib, writer. And yes, you can use this pattern for many, many, many other words. For instance, if I took the word, kaf ra in Arabic is a root which means to cover things or to be ungrateful. And if I plug that into this root, I'd get the word kafir. Kafir, meaning someone who covers up, someone covers things up, someone who is ungrateful, someone who disbelieves. So again, we create the specific word by taking one root and plugging it into the pattern. And there's some really fascinating patterns in Arabic. It's something I'm really passionate about, and I always try and I'm always trying to talk to people about this when I'm not even outside Arabic lessons, because I find it really fascinating. So fa'il is the pattern of the doer, and another pattern is the pattern of place. Now, sometimes there's a bit of variation in the pattern, like this one here could be maf'al or could be maf'il. Words tend to have a fatha or a kasra on the ayn here, and you can see this. So if sin jim dal is the root, then we can get a masjid. So does anyone have an idea? And I'd love to see in the comments if anyone has an idea. Could anyone answer, what do you think sin jim dal means, the root behind masjid? What do you think the general meaning of sin jim dal is? Not sitting. Great, prostrating. Got it there. Absolutely. Bowing down in prostration, like sajda, right? When we're the position, also from that root. Okay, so the mosque is the place of bowing down in prostration. Okay, ta'am means food or feeding, and mat'am is the place of food, a restaurant. And we know what kataba means already, right? Writing. So the place of writing is a maktab, which can mean a desk or an office, all on the pattern of place. And I could list many more, actually. So there's many words on this pattern. Another cool pattern in Arabic is fu'ail. Now, fu'ail is called the diminutive. It's the pattern for little things. And so we get some amazing words from this pattern. One of them is Hussein, the name, and Hassan. Hassan is a beautiful boy's name, which means, well, it actually means beautiful or good. And then a little Hassan is a Hussein. Hassan plugged into the pattern for little things. A kitab, as we know, is a book. And a kutaib, if we plug that into the fu'ail pattern, is a booklet. The word for the sea in Arabic is bahr, bahr. So it has that root, ba, ha, ra. And that is, we get the word buhaira. And it's got a ta' marbuta as well. So these patterns, you need the teachers in a sense to explain how there's these organic differences in the language. It's not robotic. Arabic isn't machine-like. In a sense, it has this beautiful technology, but it follows it in a very organic way. So buhaira is a feminine word, but you can see the general pattern there for a little sea, which is the go-to word in Arabic for a lake. So this is something that I'm really passionate about, these patterns. And I've just picked 4 patterns to talk about today, although there are many more in the language in the language. And this is something we talk about in our courses as we go through, as a way of maximizing your ability as an Arabic student to broaden your vocabulary without having to always go to the vocabulary list. Because when you know your patterns really well, you can even predict words just with the knowledge of the root. And it strengthens the connections between your vocabulary as well. Okay, so the last pattern we're going to look at today is the pattern for tools. So mif'al gives us the pattern for anything that we use as humans as a tool. Miftahun is from the root fataha. Fataha. This root is amazing, really. I mean, obviously, miftah is the thing we use to open things, a key. But we have many roots coming, many words, coming from this root fataha. For instance, the word fatiha, the first surah of the Quran, is the opening surah, and so it comes from this root. And other words like fath, which can mean a conquest, or the opening of new land. So here we get another word from musbah, from the root sabaha, meaning to do with the morning here and light coming. So misbah is a lamp, and then minshar is a saw, again coming from the root nun shim ra, which can mean to cut apart. And so we get so many words here which come from just different roots plugged into the same pattern. Again, there's many more words that I could talk about, but I didn't want to overload you today. So that really encapsulates a taste of this topic of the Arabic root system in two halves. The first half being what the root system was, the second half being how we can start to use that root system with a knowledge of patterns and roots and combining them together, just like in this example, to create words. Now, this is, again, I'd just like to talk a little bit about what we do at Ihsan Arabic with regards to this topic. So this topic is part of our level 1 course. And, generally this kind of approach to Arabic goes throughout the course. But the idea of the course as a whole is to take people from knowing the alphabet and knowing how to read the script to understanding how to read texts. And the idea is to support people in their pursuit of integrating Arabic into their lives so that we can, talk about Arabic in a slightly more authoritative way, and we can direct our own studies on our own adventures into the world of Arabic learning. This is the syllabus for level 1. Level 1 is a 14-week course. And in the course, we have 12 lessons. So we generally get together in a small group of people. We cap class sizes at 5 people. So you have 5 brothers or 5 sisters in a group, and then you come together and each week you take one of these topics. So in a way, we just touched on it today, but we took the topic of the root system, which is actually the final lesson of level 1. But if you want to get the full experience, it's nice to have all these other build-up lessons. And level 1 is, again, like I said, around 3 months as a course. There's level 2, there's levels 3 and level 4, all the way up to level 6 that you can go on to. And so it's a great way to make Arabic part of your life, is just to come to 1 hour session a week